podcast of Keeping Bear Armed with Don Alley and myself, Barry Javessian, where we discuss the latest and greatest of Michigan firearms law. That's not exactly true. We just discuss whatever it is that comes across relevant to firearms and other interests we have. Right now we're talking about the current legislation pending in the Michigan State Senate. It is in the Senate because it passed the House. That would do away with the current CPL requirements. Right? It's not. It has passed the House.
You're talking the constitutional carry?
Well, the constitutional carry, yeah.
Yep.
Constitutional carry, that's right.
So yeah, the constitutional carry. I read those bills, and the interesting thing it does is in the law where it says these people these people are allowed to carry concealed. It basically adds the general population to that, which in my mind is not really a good constitutional carry law. The proper way to do it, in my mind, would be to remove the felony charge for doing so. So it looks like the legislature wants to be able to retain the ability to prosecute someone if they want to, or commission of a felony or something like that. But they are essentially adding the average person to the list of people that can carry concealed. Mm-hmm. And in my mind, like I said, that's not true constitutional carry.
No, constitutional carry is going to be, well, just use the Constitution as the law of the land for it, obviously.
Correct.
And you're right, that sounds like the legislature is trying to retain some powers to itself and regulate that. But why? When you look at the logic of it, when you look at the history of CPL in Michigan, where we went from, what was it? It was 2001. Yeah, 2001. Yep. We got we became a shall issue state.
Yep. And
a hue and cry rose up from those on the anti side that said, no, there's going to be blood in the streets and people going to be shooting each other over parking spaces. And Jennifer Granholm, she was Attorney General at the time. She said, when I get elected governor, I will repeal it. And she got elected, and everyone was very quiet for a very long time. And somebody would ask you that question, well, why haven't you done work towards repealing it? And he said, well, nothing really has happened.
I had no
support for it. And you saw the normalization of this.
Yep. And
I think we've reached another turning point where people are starting to legitimately question, well, why do I have to pay the state for a right? And I think there's still, this is the vestiges of that mindset back in 2001 was trying to hold on. I mean, people who are going to commit a felony with a firearm will be charged appropriately.
Yep.
Just to tack on a charge carrying a concealed firearm, I don't know if that's really going to help at all.
In my mind, the symptom here is the ineffectiveness of the justice system. So you have this person that went out and committed a violent act against someone else. That violent act is not being prosecuted well, and therefore we have to add a bunch of extra stuff to it so that it eventually becomes prosecuted to a level that people want or that people agree with. And if someone goes out and accosts someone and is violent to them and harms them, does it really matter what the weapon was? It's the act of doing so that needs to be prosecuted.
Yeah. Whether it's a baseball bat or a firearm,
a sledgehammer is going to do a big amount of damage, right? And it doesn't really matter if it's like you said, a sledgehammer, or a bat, or a firearm, or a knife. The act of assault is what the problem here is. And I think if the justice system would prosecute the action the way that the people expect, there would not be a call for all these extra things like, oh, it was with a commission, a felony with possession of a firearm.
That makes it all the worse.
Yeah, it's like,
the guy was laying on the ground with his head bashed in.
Right, it's like, you know what? I'm willing to take my sledgehammer out and rob this bank, but that gun law, that's the one I'm afraid of.
Oh.
So, in my mind, if I had my way, all of the weapons laws would go away entirely, and the laws against harming other people, the assault and battery, the attempted murder, the manslaughter, and the murder, and all, things like that, like sexual assault and stuff like that, that would carry the penalty that the people expect if someone were to do this. So
Well, I think in all things you'll find, especially given the politicization of the justice, of the criminal justice system, because you got prosecutors who are answering to the people because they got elected, obviously, and they want to show they're tough on crime, and judges want to show they're tough on crime. This, as far as they're concerned, puts another arrow in their quiver so they can demonstrate and know I'm doing something about it. What are you really doing? You know, the guy was going to be convicted of robbing a bank or assault one way or another. The fact that he used a gun in the commission doesn't have that much relevance.
Correct.
Sentencing maybe, fine, but as far as the rest of it goes, I don't know.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was saying. Sentencing, it's how do we get these people to the jail terms that we are actually expecting?
Mhm.
And it seems to me like all these tacked on weapons laws are the mechanism to do that. And in my mind, just take the initial act and fine them and, you know, imprison them accordingly.
Yeah.
Now, me being deeply libertarianism, you know, libertarian, in a lot of sense, the laws also help prevent the good guys from acting, because you go through this hesitation. What is justifiable? What is not justifiable?
There's that possibility.
What am I allowed to do here? And you know, if you walk into a house and someone's accosting a family member or something like that, you know, is it legal or is it not legal, or am I justified or not justified, should barely be entering someone's head, because instinctively these people know if it's justified or not. And they would act with less hesitation to defend their families. But instead, now we have this, okay, is this justifiable use of force? I'm going to be judged by the legal system if I do this, and I want to make sure that I'm in the right on this legally. But deep down inside, these people already know that they're in the right because they have a family member being accosted in front of them. So, you know, in my mind, again, if you go back to the intent of the crime, you know, if someone's robbing a bank or they're doing a sexual assault or they're, you know, murdering someone, that's where this needs to be prosecuted at. And if someone walks into a house, they should not, the last thing they should have to worry about is some DA going to come after me because I did the wrong use of force in his mind to protect my family. So.
Well, and that's why I think that's why you see a lot of the things like the Castle Doctrine cropping up, and then you see a lot of the stand your ground laws and so forth, because people, there's a pushback on the side of people that say, look, I know what's right. I feel I should have the ability to defend myself. I don't want to have this specter, this cloud of possible prosecution hanging over my head just because I was someplace minding my own business lawfully and this went down and I acted in my according to what the situation dictated for me, and acted in good faith. And now I'm looking at the jail time or prison time. I think that's wrong. I think that's where the genesis for those laws came about.
Yeah.
And rightly so. But again, you talk as a libertarian, and rightly so, to say, oh, we should have never had to. No one should have had to fear for that to begin with.
Correct.
So.
Yeah. And you know, you look at the stand your ground laws, and the stand your ground laws came about because of a ridiculous duty to retreat law. And you know, I agree that the firearm is used as a tool of last resort. I agree that harming another human being is not something that should be taken lightly. And I think a regular moral and ethical person understands that, and they don't want to go out and harm others. And the majority of Americans are like that. And then when you see stand your ground get pushed, and it's like, we are now allowing you to do this, and it's like, you're allowing me to do this, but I should have already had the right to do that. And this goes back to what you're saying. But by imposing a duty to flee in the first place, we are giving the bad guy the initiative. I must do something. I must take extra steps that the bad guy doesn't even have to take. Mm-hmm. You know, I have to take these extra steps to make sure what I'm doing is justifiable. That puts me at a disadvantage as far as initiative goes in dealing with the situation. because I'm dealing with more
The
variables.
bad guy's never concerned about those.
And the bad guy doesn't care. He's just hoping to get away anyway.
And that's a whole nother discussion that we will have later. Believe me, depending on how much time you want to devote to watching this, we will have that discussion. But let's talk the practicalities of what we're looking at with these CPL laws. So basically, we're talking. Well, so far we haven't seen a true constitutional carry law come up, where it would be just doing away with the CPL process altogether, or are we? I don't think that was in the Senate bill. I think what you and I would think of for constitutional carry would be that you're a citizen of the state of Michigan, and if you wake up in the morning and put a pistol on your belt or underneath your coat or something like that, and you have no felony convictions, you're a law-abiding citizen, and walk out the door, that's it. There's no, whether you carry one or not, it's not the government's business.
Correct. That would be the absolute ideal.
Yeah. What we have here right now is you don't have to go to a class, you don't have to take what would be the NRA personal protection in the home course. I don't know what other courses that are out there. I think there are a few, but they were custom crafted for it and they're not widely taught.
Correct. There's a personal protection outside the home, which is more advanced. My understanding is when Michigan went and got their concealed carry laws, there was a training requirement, a use of force requirement that the Senate expected. And the NRA came in and said, our personal protection in the home course meets these. And that was their more elementary one. You know, there's like basic pistol, personal protection in the home, personal protection outside the home, and then I believe there's some more advanced ones after that. But the in the home one met the requirements. So the NRA said that's the one we'll use because that meets the requirements. So with the new Senate bills that have actually passed, is it 584? 84 through 86, yeah. I believe it was.
So we better be right on that. Yeah. We'll find it, yeah. It's.
So these bills are basically saying with additional training, the pistol-free zones that already exist would be exempt. So right now in Michigan, there's pistol-free zones for open carry. You can't carry it in your car. You can't carry it at a place, licensed to sell alcohol, and a few other places where if you have a CPL or not, you're allowed to openly carry these or not allowed to openly carry in these pistol-free zone areas. But you can open carry like walking down the street and things like that. Uh-huh. With the CPL laws that came into place around 2001, it basically said these pistol-free zones no longer apply to people with CPL, but there's these pistol-free zones that you now have, which is like a dorm room or a casino or a daycare school type thing. Arena of 2,500 people, a few other things. And the way the law read was a person with a CPL shall not carry concealed in these locations. And this is the loophole. But Mike Cox, who was Attorney General for, I think it was Granholm at the time? Yeah,
he was.
And he made the Attorney General opinion in Michigan that the law states that a person shall not carry concealed. So the law removed these pistol-free zones from the CPL people that the open carriers have. And then his Attorney General opinion said that just applies to concealed carry. The law says you shall not concealed carry in there. But the law also stripped these pistol-free zones from open carry, so a person with a CPL is allowed to open carry in these places, which includes schools, casinos, arenas, daycares, places like that. You can open carry in these places legally. This is not saying anything about private property rights. Mm-hmm. A person can come up to you and say, get out of my establishment because I don't want you in here with that firearm. And they're within their right to because it is their private property.
Exactly.
And it is within your obligation at that point to leave their location and respect their private property. So what these Senate bills now are doing is they're basically saying, okay, these no concealed carry zones that we currently have, you'll be allowed to concealed carry in there if you get this extra training, which the speculation is it's going to match the personal protection outside the home course for the NRA. The other thing that the law states is that a person must concealed carry in those locations. They cannot open carry in those locations. So, the idea here basically is, some people, they see a gun, they get nervous. And the idea is that this, couple millimeters of cotton covering it is somehow going to keep everybody safe. So,
Give a normalcy bias. People don't see
Yeah.
something, so they
give them that.
what's going on there. So, yeah.
Give them their millimeter thickness of cotton, right?
Yeah.
So they're basically saying is these concealed carry zones that you weren't allowed to carry in concealed, but can carry in openly, you can now carry in concealed, but you must carry concealed. That's what these Senate bills are basically doing.
Well, I was actually in something last Sunday. Have you ever heard of Alice, training Alice? And during it all, I can't remember the exact acronym, Bloomfield Hills Public Safety put it on at Christchurch, Cranbrook. It was at the behest of the priest, the pastor there, brought them in. It was active shooter type training. And of course, fresh on everybody's mind is, well, what can people carry in a church? And the pastor addressed it for this church. I don't go to Christchurch, Cambridge, but said that even if they had that exemption or anything, you could not carry in a church because that's the policy of it's an Episcopalian church, and that's the policy from the top down.
And that's their private property.
That's
right?
private property, exactly. But it was interesting, more to the point for the training aspect. I highly recommend looking it up, and I'm going to talk to Bloomfield Hills Public Safety again about this and see if they can do it for my church, because there's a great program. Ironically enough, half of it was almost like the MRA Personal Protecting in the Home course. It was have a plan and know how to execute the plan and going on down the line of that. And I'm sitting there in the pews with what I imagine were a lot of hippies, but you guys should really take the NRA Personal Protection in the Home course. And I didn't say this much out loud. More than likely they would chase me out of there. But the courses of the NRA office obviously are very good because they've got a lot of information. I think I don't know enough about the outside the home to comment on that, but I would suspect, like you say, that if they go forward with these new requirements, that probably would be logically what they choose, and so I'm to get trained on that and understand that better.
Yep.
But again, going back to the idea of openly carrying firearm versus concealed carrying, and how these bills are supposed to make things easier for concealed carrier. In my mind, I've yet to see any evidence or any empirical evidence or any facts put up by the other side, the anti, saying that this is going to increase crime or increase accidents or anything. Because if you can currently, as the law states, or actually the law doesn't even address, you can carry openly, right?
Correct.
If there were problems with that, we'd know. They would splash up across every news channel, every news feed. Open carrier shoots self or injures self or does something dastardly.
Truly the only issue with open carry is people who see the firearm and they overreact.
Well, yeah,
that is the primary issue.
That is really it. And I think I've told you this before. I personally don't like the idea of open carry simply because of the tactical implications it has for the person carrying the pistol. Now you've kind of lost the initiative. My personal take is that if you're going to carry a firearm, nobody else needs to know.
Correct.
But getting back to the idea of suddenly, if those people who carry openly can now, without any further training, carry concealed, that suddenly all hell's going to break loose. It just doesn't pass the smell test.
And I haven't heard them using that argument, probably because they know that it was a lie to begin with. When they said Michigan streets would run red with blood, we were, I believe, the 26th state to adopt concealed carry, shall issue concealed carry. And in the previous 25 states, the streets were not red with blood. So it was essentially fear tactics. And, we can definitely get into open carry and concealed carry all day long. In my mind, open carry, like I said, if it's for protection, open carry is not the best choice. Your best choice is to be gray man, be nondescript, move through the crowd, don't draw any attention to yourself. At that point, you're going to be the most protected. When you openly carry, you are doing so as a mechanism of essentially public information. You are, I've used the phrase before, you are an ambassador to the gun right movement if you choose to do that.
Some of these guys are kind of scary ambassadors.
There are some scary ambassadors, like the morons with assault rifles getting their Starbucks. It's just, that's not the right way to go about it.
I'll never begrudge them for exercising their right. You're right. But are you doing so judiciously in the best possible way?
Correct. And you have to do it in a way that you are an ambassador to the movement and not something, against it. But like you're saying, all these people that were openly carrying, and there are quite a few of them in Michigan, I probably come across maybe 3 or 4 a month, just out and about. I see someone with a firearm on their side.
What's funny, I've not seen too many. If you remember back a couple years ago, we arrested a kid in Birmingham who was carrying his granddad, his M1 Grand.
Yep.
And for the record, he looked like he was 12. That was the reason why we were dealing with him. And after that happened, the open carry protesters came to Birmingham, and it was kind of funny because it was very anticlimactic. There was a whole, maybe about 10 or 20 of them max, and they marched through Birmingham, and we didn't care. Right. The officers in Birmingham are very pro-Second Amendment. It was not a Second Amendment issue as far as we were concerned at all. And then that just kind of went away. Now, I was down in Tennessee about 2 years ago, and that was a funny situation. I saw all kinds of people open carrying down in Tennessee. Of course, I was at Smoky Mountain, so I don't know if that was there, but and nobody batted an eye. I mean, we're talking 1911s on condition 1 on the hip, and which, when I think about it, it's a heavy gun carrying hip. It is. It is. But
right, and it's the open carry is about normalization of firearms. But getting back to your point, like you said, all the people who are openly carrying now, just adding making it constitutionally allowed, and adding a piece of cloth over it is not going to change anything.
Yeah.
They're already not harming people, and with the piece of cloth over it, they're going to continue not harming people. The issue, like we were talking about earlier, is when someone chooses to harm someone, and in that case, the tool is irrelevant. It's not a gun issue.
That's exactly it.
It's a
not a gun
issue.
It's an action issue. It's what happens. If the gun didn't do anything, it was somebody did something.
Yep.
And they started that chain of events. And so, dealing with the inanimate object or legislating an inanimate object in such a way is not productive or in any way effective. It has to be dealt with the motive of the person.
Right. I mean, if you got a kid and he's got his box of crayons and he marks up your wall, you can take the crayons from him. And that is essentially what the anti-gunners are trying to do, is take away all of our crayons. But what ends up happening is they don't learn not to mark on the wall. At some point you have to teach the kid not to mark on the wall. And the responsible thing to do here is to, obviously it's to educate, not to harm people. But after that, you have to punish people for marking on the wall. And you don't sit there and punish the crayon. You don't take the crayons away for life, which is really what anti-gun legislation is.
You don't limit in other words, you can't limit the box size. The Crayola 64 versus the Crayola 56.
Right. And it's like these black crayons are the scary ones. They're the ones that are hard to get off the wall. The high capacity crayon box with the sharpener built in.
Nobody uses a sharpener.
Yeah. So if you want a responsible child, you educate him to not mark on the wall. Similarly, if you want a responsible citizenry, you prosecute the action of writing on the wall. You don't just take liquid crayons away from the entire population. It's just not going to work. So, someone's going to come in and say, yeah, well, you know what? Marking on a wall isn't a life-threatening situation. You're right, but learning and understanding the morality of just confiscating something from someone in an effort to fix a problem is what we're talking about, and it's not about crayons on the wall, realistically. So,
well, there's a lot we could say about that.
Yep.
One last thing I wanted to, well, maybe not the last thing, but one thing I do want to mention here, we see it here on the screen here, banning carrying in police stations. And this looks like it was introduced by Abdullah Hamad, representative out of Dearborn. Introduced a bill to limit carrying weapons at police stations after two men, one masked, walked into the Dearborn police station with guns. Now this is, I just want to talk about this for a minute. If you remember it and saw it on TV, I'm absolutely amazed those people are still alive. And they come into my station with masks and guns on. I can't say they would last that long. Because
yes, it was a very stupid thing to do.
This is one of those issues of you might be able to technically. Why in God's name would you?
Yeah. So I've heard, like, previously the police in that department had contact with these guys and told them to come to the station, and they were provoked. I've heard a couple of other different stories, but bottom line is, even if you were provoked, you have all that time from, okay, I was provoked, to the police broke contact with me, and then they chose to go get their long guns and their ski masks and do something incredibly stupid. So, the excuses I've heard for this are absolutely ridiculous, because we were provoked, and it's like, well, go home and sleep it off.
What was this provoked? I heard this.
So I heard, and this is all completely from memory, that the police made a stop on these guys earlier, and they pulled the, am I being detained, blah blah blah, and the police basically and them had a little bit of an ego clash, and the police let them go because there was technically nothing going on, and at that point contact is broken. So go on your merry way, suck it up, little trooper, and go and live your life. Don't dwell on it, and don't say, okay, I'm gonna get my long guns and I'm gonna get my shotgun or whatever they had. I think they had a shotgun.
Wait, and so they were called to go back to the station? That was what I might assume was they were. I think or something to go see somebody.
I think the police said, if you got a problem, come down to the station or something like that. We'll get it all sorted out. And
they took.
According to the account, the police said it in a confrontational way. Again, get over it. And these guys decided that they were going to act on it. This is the account I heard. It's hearsay. I don't know what really happened. I wasn't there. But like I'm saying is, they chose not. They chose to go and do this stupid stuff, and it's entirely on them.
Yeah. Well.
Do we need this bill? No.
It is. Yeah. This is. And that's the problem I find with a lot of legislation is it just seems to layer on more and more stuff that we just start looking at. It's a waste of paper.
Yeah.
It's like one of the things I hate doing personally, and I'm a good handyman. I can do carpentry, I can do drywall. I hate painting. I hate painting so much. And I hate coming to places where I see they painted on walls and they painted. There was the original coat, then there was a second coat, the third, fourth, and it's like literally you got an inch of paint. And that's what I feel like when they do this. When they pass this legislation, it's like you're layering more stuff on. It doesn't. You're going to be taking stuff off.
It's Band-Aid legislation.
It's not good law.
This law is the result of one action by two morons.
And this is why, as gun owners, we hate these people even more so than any anti ever could. We look at these people and say, why in God's name are you doing this? You are screwing it up for us. Please stop.
Yep, this is why we can't have nice things.
Why we can't have nice things, that's right.
So yeah, in my mind, this bill needs to die. It was a one-off. Everyone else in the entire state managed to not do this in an ongoing way for like the entire history of the whole state. So since 18 whenever, this has not been an issue. So,
Well, let's hope they see through that one, but I'm guessing because it's in politics, they won't. It'll be tacked on as a rider somewhere.
yep.
But at least it doesn't cost us any money, I hope. I hope you enjoyed this. I know Dan and I did. Hopefully we'll be talking about more relevant topics to firearms and other problems of the world. We'll be solving
Yep.
them in 15-minute increments.
We will make the world a better
15,
place.
20 minutes or whatever. But anyway, this is Don and Bears from Keeping Bear telling you to keep safe. Take care.
Thank you.